Hi, Anthony. Well, thank you everyone to be here today. Thank you for all of year 12 students or anyone else who is here today. It's a pleasure to have you. So today we're very lucky to have Mr. Anthony Kadi, who is the Director of Professional Practice in the Faculty of Engineering at the University of Sydney. So him together with one of our current students, Hunter Wardman, who is a double degree combined student of engineering, chemical engineering, and business, or commerce, sorry, finance. We'll talk to you a little bit about engineering, about the student experience and professional practice and everything that you can find there. So I'll leave it to you, Anthony. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carlos. And a big warm welcome to everyone joining us online this afternoon. So I'm going to be talking to you about your future in engineering. And can I just start off by saying thank you very much to Hunter for giving up his time today to also join the session and to offer his side of things. Hunter's very busy with his studies at the moment, so we're very happy that he could join us as well. Thanks, mate. So look, I'm just going to talk to you very briefly a little bit about engineering and your future. So the first thing is I want to ask you a question, which is, why are you planning to study? And is it because you want to do it just for fun? Or is it because your parents are rich and they're going to, pay for your course, but don't really care whether you pass or not? Or is it because you want to get a job at the end of it and you want to make some good coin? So if it's the third category, then everything that I'm going to be talking about today is really important for you. But if it's one of the first two, yeah, don't worry about it. So the first question is, do graduate engineers actually get engineering jobs? This is the most important thing. This is the reason why you're going to be studying, right? So this is data from the Australian census that shows the percentage of engineering bachelor graduates who actually are working as a professional engineer. That's in the dark blue down the bottom here. And otherwise employed in the light blue, and the very light grey at the top, not working at all. So what you can see is that engineering bachelor graduates, on the whole, less than 40% of them end up working as professional engineers. But you can see that over 90% of them end up working overall. So what does that tell you? Well, it tells you that engineering is a very broad degree that opens a lot of doors. You may not necessarily end up working as an engineer. What engineers learn about, in a nutshell, is they learn how to solve very complex problems in a systematic way. And it turns out that a lot of businesses and a lot of organizations need those kind of skills, not just engineering organizations. So that's why we see a very high employment rate in engineering graduates. And it turns out that this is actually one of the highest rates of graduate employment in Australia. It's just below medicine and dentistry. You'll find engineering is way up there, okay? Much higher than some other degrees that you might want to study. Now you might say, well, that's pretty weird. That's just Australia. Well, here's the same data from the United States. And you can see here that the people who study engineering in the US, about half of them end up going over here and working as engineers and computer workers. And then it shows the other half end up going to all these different areas. So again, it shows that engineering is a very versatile degree that can open up many doors for you. And particularly, if you go and combine that with another degree like Hunter's done, our guest student for today, he's doing chemical and biomolecular engineering combined with commerce. So, about 50% of the students that study engineering at Sydney Uni are doing a double degree of some form. So that's another way that you can make your degree more versatile. So what is it that employers are actually looking for when they hire graduates? Now you might say to yourself, well, I don't need to know this crap. I'm going to worry about this, the day before I need to go and find a job, just after I graduate. Well, actually, that's not true. Okay. You do need to worry about it now. You've got to start building your skills right now from day one, week one of your degree. Okay, it's really important. So number one on everyone's list, communication skills. Doesn't matter what industry you want to work in, that's the most important thing that all employers look for. Second most important thing, interest, passion, commitment to your area of study. Okay, then they look at work experience and other things that you've done besides your actual degree. Then they look at your values and your cultural fit. And only then do they start to look at your grades and your technical skills. So those things are way down on the list. By all means, do really well in your course and get high grades, but that's not what's going to get you a job when you graduate. It's all these other things that are more important above that. Okay, and that's the sort of stuff I want to talk to you about today. Yep, sure. Come to Sydney Uni, do engineering, you'll get a great degree and you'll learn great technical skills, but that alone won't be enough to guarantee you a great job. You got to look at these other things as well. So what have we got at Sydney Uni that can help you develop all those other things, right? So one of the things we've got is amazing range of clubs and societies, and Hunter might tell you about some of these as well. So we've got Engineers Without Borders. We've got the Sydney University Rocketry Club. These guys actually build rockets and launch them. And they actually entered into a competition in the United States a couple of years ago and won that competition. So these guys are pretty damn good. If you come to study engineering, you'll be doing this thing called the Professional Engagement Program. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. But that is what is going to set you up for having a strong value proposition for a potential employer later on. Then we've got these scholarship placements where you can go and work in industry for a whole semester. We've got industry and community projects, and we've got this thing called Jacaranda Flame Consulting, and I'll talk a bit more about that later on, and Hunter's going to talk about that as well. We've got the Sydney Leadership Academy. We've got mentoring programs. We've always got things happening on campus. Okay. Now, apart from the professional engagement program, which is a compulsory part of engineering degrees, all these other things are optional, right? But it's up to you to get involved in that and show to your potential employer later on that you're actually interested in what you're studying. I'll go back a slide. Remember, number 2 on the list was interest, passion, and commitment to your area of study. The way you demonstrate that is by actually doing stuff outside of your degree that's related to your degree. Okay, and that's all the stuff that's on this screen here. So I'm going to come back to this later on, but let's have a little look now at this one at the top here, Professional Engagement Program, which I run, and that is you come in from week 1, semester 1, year 1, right through to when you graduate, and you have to do 600 hours of professional engagement right throughout your degree. And you have to log these hours in an online system. And by the way, we've modeled this on what professionals do once they graduate. So engineers, professional engineers have to actually do this as part of maintaining their certification status. So you're getting into the groove of doing that while you're a student. So the 600 hours is broken down into 200 hours of engineering focused activities. And these are things like site visits, guest lectures, industry projects, hackathons, things like that. Then there's non-engineering focused activities, which are building up your transferable skills. And then there's actually work experience in industry. And then there's some flexibility to do more of any of the other 3 categories. So you can do more work experience or more engineering focused or whatever to make up the 600. Now, 600 hours sounds like a lot, but it's not, because a lot of the stuff you'll actually do in some of your other units of study, okay? And we'll talk a bit more about that shortly. So professional engagement, it's getting you interested in the area that you're studying, but also what it's about is moving you away from this mentality of how can I pass the exam to how can I apply this knowledge in practice? Because when you go out and actually work, or you hear about how engineers actually go about their work, you realize that you need to actually apply the knowledge that you've learned. And that means you really need to deeply understand it. So it's not just about passing your exam, it's about really understanding it and being able to apply it. Okay, so I want to bring Hunter in here, and I've got a couple of questions for him first up, which is, tell us a little bit about yourself first up, but then tell us a little bit about PEP and how you've found the program.
Yeah, sure thing. So hi everyone, my name's Hunter. I'm in my 4th year of a combined chemical engineering and commerce degree, and I'm majoring in finance on the commerce side. So I've got, this semester and then I finish at the end of next year to go. So I've done a lot of my engineering studies. Up until now, it's my last semester of engineering, and then I've got a little bit of commerce to go at the end. So when I first started, PEP was a new program. It was the first time it had been run at the university, and it seemed like a really good opportunity for me to get out and actually see how what I was studying would be applied into the real world. But it was daunting at the same time, because there was a whole heap of these hours that we had to do and that we had to log. And there was a lot of planning involved. But throughout the whole course of my degree, you see that being thrown in the deep end and having this massive target of 600 hours, for instance, to work towards, that's just like any other engineering problem that you'll end up having. And by working through the program, you put in practice a lot of engineering project management principles and lots of planning principles that you learn along the way throughout your degree. So that's sort of how I was initially approaching PEP, and looking back, I can see a lot of value from it. It pushes you in directions that you might not have thought otherwise, and it forces you to go out and to join societies and to go to events to find things that pique your interest, so you can log all the hours. So that's sort of me looking back on the program now. And then the things I've learned from the program, there's so much that at the start it seems like, oh, I'm never going to have to worry about this again. I'm never going to have to plan, my professional learning or anything like that. But as you get out into the workplace, this is exactly what you have to do. Some employers mandate, that you do 20 hours of professional learning every year just to stay employed in your job. So that's something that's been really eye-opening through the PEP program, and that's there's been lots of things that I've learned, but that's sort of the big overarching thing that I think's really been really valuable.
Awesome, thanks for that, Hunter. Now, Hunter's also been involved in the Jaguar Flame consulting initiative, and I'll talk a little bit about that, and then we'll come back to Hunter and ask him a few questions about that shortly. So what is Jaguar Flame Consulting? Well, it's like a fake consulting company that the university has set up. And we try and provide a very authentic engineering consulting business experience. So just like any other job, students have to apply with their CV, and they have to attend an interview. And we only take, about a certain percentage of students that actually apply. And then they get an induction day, and then they have to work 9 to 5, 5 days a week in an office, which is actually off campus. And we employ qualified engineering supervisors to actually look after the projects. The students work in teams of, it's actually around 4 to 6 students each project. And we go out and find real industry projects that need an actual solution to be delivered. So these are not Mickey Mouse projects. These are real projects that people want and are relying on for their business or for their organization. We've been doing this for over 5 years now, and we've had lots of different clients over the years. So Cerebral Palsy Alliance was one of our most recent ones last semester. Transport for New South Wales. We've had some students working on the new Nancy Bird Walton Airport at Badgerys Creek. And in fact, the students there were working on a new vertical transport system for the airport terminal building. And I can't tell you very much about it because it's a bit secret, but it's not involving lifts and it's not involving escalators. They come up with a whole new way of moving people in the airport between different levels. Dolby, Sydney Metro, Robert Bird Group, BID, these are just a handful of the projects that people have worked on. So yep, they've delivered real value for these clients. These are real industry projects. So I want to bring Hunter back in here now and ask him a little bit about his experience with JFC and what was the most important thing you learnt from doing JFC.
Yeah, definitely. So I finished I did the JFC program over the winter break we've just had. So it was 6 weeks, and when I applied, I wasn't expecting, that the lockdown would have happened, but it ended up being 6 weeks working from home. But what I worked on was I was tasked with a group of 6 other students, just like myself, looking to complete some professional experience. And we were paired up with a mechanical engineering firm based in southern Sydney. And what these guys did was they specialised in producing polyurethane foams, which are used in train carriages and in hospital beds and in a whole lot of applications. But what they wanted us to help them identify and the problem that we were solving was that they wanted us to come up with a new type of product that they could sell to the building and construction industry, incorporating the foams that their firm had produced. So there were a whole lot of steps that we had to do. And as I said before, we had such a large scope to start off with, and then we narrowed it down into more manageable tasks along the way. And in the end, we came out with a number of products that aligned with what this organisation had already specialised in. And we came up with a whole heap of recommendations and a big report and a presentation at the end to tell the clients all that we'd been looking into and all of the research that we'd been conducting. So it was a really real world experience, even though it's supposedly a simulated engineering consulting. You're working on real projects and you're getting real hands-on experience. I know that some other groups who are working on electronic projects, they were playing with little Arduinos and they were doing coding and they were doing a whole lot of, others were doing simulations. And this is stuff that if you were out in the real world in an engineering firm outside of the university, you'd be working on similar projects and you'd be doing a whole lot of the same stuff that's covered in JFC. So the most important thing, there are a lot of things I learned from JFC, but I guess the fact that you're paired together with a bunch of students, who are at the same technical level as you, but doing different disciplines within the university, within the engineering faculty, was with civil engineers and mechanical engineers and, biomedical engineers. So all of us were coming together and bringing the ideas that we'd learnt from our different areas and the different technical and analytical skills that we've developed. And we were applying that to the project. And that's something that when you get out into the real world, you appreciate that when you're working in teams in engineering firms or in any organization, you'll be expected to be a specialist in something, or you'll have general knowledge in one specific area, but you're relying on so many other different people and the technical skills that they have as well, in order to fulfill a project. And that's, I think, is something that more broadly engineering does really well, but JFC really helps to illuminate as well.
And you got to meet with the client weekly?
Yeah, we had, sometimes it was 2 or 3 times a week. Constantly keeping in touch with, I think he was their product development manager. So pretty senior and important people in these organizations who you get to have contact with.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for that, Hunter. We might just finish up the presentation and then I can see some questions coming through in the Q&A box. The last little thing I want to talk about is there's another unit that you can do, which is called the Industry and Community Projects, ICPU. And this is like JFC on steroids. So it's like you get put into teams with students, not just from engineering, but right across the whole university. So you might be working with students studying music or psychology or business or medicine or whatever. And you work on really big projects, you know, like the impact of artificial intelligence in banking, and really, you know, talking about the future of the dairy industry in Australia and things like that. So there's some really interesting projects that you can also get involved in later on in your degree. So remember, I said at the beginning, this is all the sort of stuff, you know, none of this is compulsory. This is all apart from the professional engagement program. If you're studying engineering, you will have to do that. But all these other things, clubs and societies and ICPUs, JFC, they're all optional things, but this is the stuff that employers want to see when you go to apply for jobs, right? If you just turn up for a job interview with just your degree and nothing else, you got Buckley's chance of getting the job, unless you actually know the person that's going to be interviewing you, right? That's another story. That's called networking. So the take-home messages I just want to summarize is that an engineering degree is really a broad degree that opens up many career options. And I can see one of the questions from Marina is, how do I know if engineering is a pathway for me? That's a very difficult question to answer. But like I said, it's a very broad degree that will open up a lot of doors. Your engineering career starts from week 1, semester 1. So start building your portfolio of experience. And that's really what PEP is all about. Make use of the opportunities available through the Sydney University. So your school, the faculty, career centre, open learning environment, ICPUs, all these things, they're available to you. It's up to you as to whether you actually engage with them or not. And employers, again, they want to see more than just what you've studied. They want to know why you're interested in that, and why you're studying, why you've chosen those things. So Marina, to answer that, try and answer that question, it's really about what's in your heart. What are you passionate about? What do you want to do with your career? You know, a lot of people that go into engineering, they say they want to actually fix problems for people and change the world. You can do that with engineering. You can, you know, if you think about one of our most famous graduates from Sydney University is John Bradfield. You know, designed the Sydney, built the Sydney Harbour Bridge and the rail network in Sydney. Now think about the impact that that guy had on the city of Sydney, not just in his lifetime, but for generations to come. That's what you can do with engineering. You can change millions of people's lives. So yeah, it's an option. You know, it's up to you to decide whether that's what you want to do. Anyway, look, I've talked long enough. So questions. So Harrison, is the Jack Around Flame Consulting a paid thing, or is it more voluntary? It's voluntary. Yep. Does this program from Nicola? Nicola, does this program apply to all engineering degrees? I think you're talking about PEP. PEP is a compulsory part of all engineering degrees. Yep. I think Marina's we've already talked about. Isaac has got a specific question, which I think Carlos and Dario might be able to answer. Here's a question for Hunter. I think, how do you find juggling the double degree as well as the engagement program and JFC?
Yeah, look, it's a lot. And my mum seems to think that I have a lot more on my plate than I do, because you've got an extra year when you do a double degree, and you do fewer additional units. So you do the course of engineering and the course of finance. So you still have the same workload in terms of the number of units you're doing every semester. It's just that you might be doing more of the harder units, perhaps towards the end of the degree. So it's very manageable. And the way that the degree is structured, traditionally you do a lot of engineering at the start, and then you sort of have the last year, or you can play it differently, but you can have it so you have your last year just for the second degree, for instance. And if you do it that way, the engineering degree, it factors in time for you to do PEP, and you can claim hours in coursework that you do for PEP as well. So it's manageable. Yeah.
Yep. Cool. Thanks for that. Question from Gia, what's the female to male student ratios in the engineering school? Great question. So in the Faculty of Engineering, we've got, I think it's the second highest in Australia. It's up around 32% female students. And the national average is about 12%. So we're pretty good there. Another question from Liz, do electrical engineers learn good programming skills? Yes, they do. But obviously they're learning a lot of electrical skills as well. So you're not going to be the same depth of programming if you're doing advanced computing. If you do advanced computing, that's all you're going to be studying. But if you're doing electrical engineering, any sort of engineering, you'll have to learn how to program as well. Another question from Isaac, is the 600 hours of PEP spread over the 4 years? Yeah, it's 600 over the 4 years or 5 years if you're doing a double degree. Yeah. No, it's not in 1 year. That would be a bit harsh, wouldn't it? What engineering fields are really sought after by companies in Australia? All of them. Yeah, they're all in high demand. I think the one that's not quite up there as much is aeronautical. And that's just because the aeronautical industry in Australia is not as big as what it is in other countries. But that doesn't mean you can't get a job studying aeronautical engineering. You can. It's just that the employment rate for those graduates is slightly lower. That's all. Teaching staff versus students ratio. Oh, I don't know about that one. I'd have to look that up. Do electrical engineers work mostly in construction projects? No, look, electrical engineers work in a wide variety of areas. Why don't you Google what do electrical engineers do? You'll find lots of websites on that. There's a really good one run by the Australian government that actually talks about that kind of stuff. So I think check that out. What's the class size normally like? Well, it depends. Some of the lectures can be huge, 200, 300, 400. But of course, then you'll have tutorial classes, which are always around about the 30 mark. So it depends on the class that you're doing. Yep. How easy is it to find overseas engineering jobs? Yes, that's very easy because all of our engineering degrees at Sydney Uni are fully accredited by Engineers Australia. And Engineers Australia are a member organisation of an international agreement called the Washington Accord. Google that, guys, and you'll find a whole website on the Washington Accord. And there are something like 35 countries around the world that will automatically accept all accredited Australian engineering degrees. So you can work in any one of those 35 countries with your USyd engineering degree. So for engineering courses such as aeronautical, does USyd assist students in reaching out to workplaces? No, not specifically, but what we do is we set you up with the skills so that you can go and do that. And of course, a lot of the clubs and societies bring those organisations onto campus and they come and run talks and they come to careers fairs and things like that. So there is a lot of industry engagement on campus, but we don't actually, it's not like nursing where we say, you're going to go and do your placement in this hospital. You have to actually find it yourself, but we give you the skills to be able to do that. Yep. What are the employment rates for biomedical engineering careers? I don't have those figures off the top of my head, but I believe they're pretty good. You can find some of that information on the QUILT website, QILT. Google that, you'll find lots of information there about employment rates from different areas of engineering. How likely are international students accepted into the university? Yeah, pretty strong. Depends on your grades, obviously, but yep. Question from Liz, did engineering students come back to campus after COVID, or has it been mostly online? It's been a bit of a mix of online and on campus. Because a lot of international students went home, we had to run classes online. And so some students, local students, elected to continue doing online, even though there was some stuff on campus. So I think next year it'll be still a mix of online and on campus, but obviously we'd like to move more to being on campus because there's so much that goes on around campus that students miss out on if they just if they're not around. And I can see a question in the chat, which is from Gabriel. One more question for Hunter, and I think then we're running out of time. Hunter, out of curiosity, how were your marks in high school? Oh, that's putting you on the spot. That's ancient history, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, I mean, once you get into uni, no one really cares about that. I think for combined engineering commerce, you need 95, so north of that for EdTime.
So there you go. Hunter was well above that to get in. And I think the minimum to get in these days to any engineering is about 92. Correct me if I'm wrong, Carlos. But there are some pathways to come in if you are not quite there. So check all that out. Guys, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I hope that's been informative. And once again, can I thank Hunter? Fantastic job, mate. I'll give you the money for those answers later on. No, just joking. Thanks again, everyone. And we hope to see you on campus sometime soon.